fashion packaging. Briefly, if there was any about, you thought, conscious decision to package the Stones and Beatles,
right,
and then going to talk about the Sex Pistols and sex.
Right, yeah. Yeah, go on, what do you want me to lead?
About fashion packaging.
Well,
was it consciously done for the Beatles, and then did you consciously do it for the Sex Pistols?
I think that it wasn't a conscious package with either group. I think that with respect to the Beatles, they were obviously aware at that time the image became very, very important. It was something that everybody could lock into. It was something that people could talk about. I think that the key with fashion in rock and roll's success in terms of promoting various singers or groups was the fact that it's much more exciting to read about the group's image than to read about the group's music. You don't really want to read words that talk about the music. It's not interesting. The music is a given. If you haven't got the music, forget it anyway. So, in those days, they began to realize that what kids wanted to talk about was what they stuck up on their wall, which was the look of Elvis Presley, the big color group photograph of the Rolling Stones, and these giveaways that now and again appeared in various pop magazines and Fleet Street journals and whatever journals existed in America, were the early days really of merchandising rock and roll, and fashion photography and grooming suddenly started to loom on the horizon as groups began to pet themselves. Makeup was always used on male performers, I think right back to Elvis Presley, but it became more flagrant. You'd flaunt it. You'd even perpetrate the idea of it as a style to look different, so you'd exaggerate it and you'd walk down the street with it. And groups like the Kinks, I think the Rolling Stones, as years rolled by, they changed, they became more chameleon and took on whatever was, tougher and more, whatever was more happening at that moment in terms of image making. And it obviously must have triggered a great deal of people who were in the rock and roll industry from the record company's point of view, that they had to start selling the group by its look as much as by its music. Well, that was going to be very difficult, simply because they hadn't been trained in this way. They trained to hear a note that's in tune, a note that's out of tune, a rhythm, a harmony, a lyric. They could relate all this to music in the past, but they weren't hairdressers, they weren't tailors. It seemed extremely effeminate, and they in fact disliked it. It was difficult. And I think that they had a very uneasy time dealing with it, and ultimately left it to managers. That's what happened, I think.
Now, let's go on to you and the Sex Pistols.
Teddy Boys existed before they saw Bill Haley. Teddy Boys just
Ready, Ray? Any thoughts on the formal fashions of Motown, like Diana Ross and Martha Reeves, where they wore their ball gowns and evening dresses? I mean, was Berry Gordy, trying to create a specific look, or just trying to make them more palatable to white audiences?
Well, I don't really know Berry Gordy, and so I don't really quite know what he was thinking. My impressions are, and it's easy to have impressions in retrospect, were that that was the style of the day, as I explained earlier, in terms of Christian Dior's La Belle Époque remodeled. And they saw it as something that really gave these young girls a great sense of decency, respect, importance, glamour. They wouldn't want them to be dressing in tracksuits or whatever was the kind of style that you would have gone to school in at the time, or the kind of style, if you were out at school, you would have gone down to the running track or the bowling alley. They wanted them to dress as if you were at an all-night party and you had nothing else to do but party, party, party. And they all looked like they were coming from a big party, and they looked like they were going off to another one. It was that eternal festive spirit, almost this Cinderella dream of constantly going to the ball. They all looked like they were off to some great ball with their chiffons in the pastel creams and pinks and greens and blues and big bows all done up and well, it was, if you look in a Dior sketchbook of the 50s, you'll see the role models of which those dresses were made from, and that was it. It was the everlasting ball. Well, La Belle Époque, that's what it was called, La Belle Époque, the naughty 90s.
Well, moving along from there, let's go into the Beatles for the next big influence here.
This particular documentary, because it was John Waters talking over and some fun conversations with Andy Warhol, all talking about these like infamous tip prints. I guess maybe as a woman, as a young woman, there is a sense of wanting to sort of not just reclaim your body, but it's used in so many ways by other people, and it's quite exciting to sort of figure out how you might want to manipulate or engage with your own body. I think that was just quite a fun thing. The way it was shot, the Beatles point, it was quite difficult I guess if you're thinking about the feminist period and all these works about Summer and the TV look-downedness of women and the male gaze and all that, was that deliberate? I don't think there was when I look at my trepidation
and with these two guys from London, I was wondering what was happening, because every time police or some call came along, of course they changed their three-card mantra to ghetto blaster, rapping, dancing, as the police moved by. We're saving up, we're collecting money because we have a radio show, we have to pay for this and the other. I said, okay, what radio show? He said, well, you just tune in, 105.9 FM. He said, you tune in tonight.